America, this is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground at Gravitas? We don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called YO1 Wellness Center. The YO1 Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Hi everyone, welcome to WION Live Broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, let's take a look at the latest stories making headlines this hour. United Nations to discuss ways to pressurize Taliban and press them to ease a ban on women working and girls going to school. Envoys from the United States, China, and Russia, as well as neighbors such as Pakistan, are among representatives from 25 countries that will attend the meeting called by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Purchase of First Republic Bank will hopefully calm turmoil in the banking sector, says JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. JP Morgan Chase is to buy most assets of First Republic after the nation's second largest bank failure ever. Russian missile attacks across Ukraine early Monday wounded 34 people in the central Dnipro region, including children. The barrage followed another wave of attacks last week that ended a weeks-long pause. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf chief Imran Khan launches campaign for elections in the country's Punjab state. This despite the political bickering and lack of clarity on the date for polls in the politically crucial province. UN High Commissioner for Refugees scales up efforts to assist people fleeing Sudan for asylum in neighboring countries. Emergency humanitarian assistance teams deployed in Chad. Okay, let's start you off with a big story here in the United States and for the Indo-Pacific region. The great competition between the United States and China is only intensifying, especially after a Chinese Coast Guard ship blocked a Philippine patrol vessel in the South China Sea. The United States has now warned that any attack on the Philippine vessel would trigger a U.S. response. The warning comes on the heels of the Philippine president's Washington visit. Fernando Marcos Jr. will be meeting his U.S. counterpart today as concerns grow regarding China's assertiveness in the South China Sea. The skirmish in the South China Sea happened on April 28th. That is when the Philippine Coast Guard said that two of its vessels were involved in a confrontation with the Chinese Navy in the disputed South China Sea. The incident occurred during a Philippine Coast Guard patrol close to the Philippine-held 2nd Thomas Shoal. Marcos' visit to Washington also comes after the U.S. and the Philippines completed their largest war drill ever. The two-week exercise involved more than 17,600 military personnel and live fire exercises. So let's tell you more about the growing Philippines-U.S. relations. Apart from the Philippine president's Washington trip and the recent military drills, the United States also hosted two diplomats from the Philippines. During the talks, both sides agreed to complete a roadmap for the U.S. to provide security assistance to its regional ally for the next 5 to 10 years. Last year, Washington also granted Manila $100 million to boost the Southeast Asian nation's defense capabilities and military modernization as well. In February, the Philippines granted new rights to the U.S. to expand access to its military bases. Fernando Marcos Jr.'s father also visited the United States back in 1982. It was Marcos' first visit to the United States in 16 years since the first year of his presidency in 1966. According to a date from the Pew Research Center's Global Attitude Project, 85% of Filipinos have a favorable view of the American people. The survey also further suggests that the Philippines like the United States of America a lot in general. Meanwhile, in recent weeks, the United States is also making diplomatic inroads, holding drills and meetings with their leaders. Just a few days ago, the United States signed the Washington Declaration Act with South Korea. It has also opened its embassy in Vanuatu in a bid to counter China in the Pacific. Apart from this, Washington has also reopened its embassy in the Solomon Islands. Meanwhile, China is also trying to rekindle its relations with various countries, especially after it brokered a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Chinese foreign minister also visited Manila for 3 days to seek cooperation amid worsening relations between the Philippines and China. Let's also now tell you why the issue of South China Sea is so contentious. China claims almost the entire South China Sea, including the Sprattles, which is also claimed by the Philippines. This has turned the South China Sea into one of the world's biggest flashpoints, especially as the U.S.-China tension is on the rise. Philippines President Fernando Marcos Jr. has arrived in the United States. He is set to meet his U.S. counterpart, Joe Biden. This meeting is widely anticipated to further strengthen U.S.-Philippines ties. The meeting comes after both nations last week completed their largest war drills ever, the one we just told you about. The 4-day visit now to Washington is a first by a Philippines president in over 10 years. Marcos Jr. says that his meeting with the U.S. president is significant for advancement of Philippines' national interests. Before leaving for Washington, he said that he is determined to seek a strong relationship with the United States. Biden and Marcos Jr. are expected to reach an agreement on greater business engagement, as well as quote-unquote military enhancement. The visit is part of a larger move to boost economic ties between the two countries. The U.S. administration has said that a presidential business delegation from Washington will also make a visit to Manila. But the largest focus is likely to be the issue of security amid tensions with China. Manila and Washington have recently agreed to expand their cooperation in strategic areas of the Philippines. The Philippines has also allowed the U.S. to increase the presence of its troops in its territory. U.S. officials believe that strategic importance of Philippines cannot be undermined, and experts say that Washington sees the Philippines as a potential location for rockets and missiles in case of an invasion of Taiwan by China. Manila has sought to balance ties with both Washington and Beijing, but its dispute with China on territorial waters of South China Sea has made it unable to do so. On Friday, the Philippines had accused China's Coast Guard of dangerous maneuvers and aggressive tactics in the region. Those are quotes. This happened after a confrontation between a Philippine vessel and two Chinese ships in the South China Sea. U.S. too had slammed China for the incident, calling it unsafe and provocative. Philippines and China have a long history of disputes in the region, as China claims almost the entire South China Sea as part of its territory. Okay, well, for more on this, we are joined by Dave Groomba. He is a journalist. He's joining us from the Philippines. Dave, welcome to WION. So great to have you. What does the Philippine president's visit hope to achieve coming out of everything that's been happening in the region?
Yeah, well, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., he wants to get a clear, ironclad, eye-to-eye, firm commitment from Joe Biden that the U.S. is going to have the Philippines back when it comes to this controversy in the South China Sea, which, as you said, China claims almost all of it. China's got overlapping claims in the South China Sea with several different countries, including a portion that overlaps with claims from the Philippines. We should stress, though, that China's claims, where they claim almost the entire South China Sea, well, an international tribunal has ruled those claims as baseless, but we are where we are. And then, of course, we have that standoff just last week, as you mentioned, between the Chinese Coast Guard and a Philippine Coast Guard, where the Chinese boat cut off the Philippine patrol boat. And the Philippines says, look, this has been going on, just like similar situations has been going on for years. So the Philippines, they do not have a Navy or a Coast Guard that can come anywhere near the force of the Chinese Navy. So they need the U.S.'s help. The U.S. and the Philippines have talked in the past about possibly resuming joint patrols. So, whether or not we're going to get that firm commitment towards joint patrols, if that's going to come out of today, maybe not. But clarity, Marcos Jr. wants clarity and a firm commitment from Biden that he's going to have the Philippines back. That's one. Two, the Philippines, they also want to modernize their military. They've got a weak military. They want more modern weapons, modern fighter jets, missiles, and so forth. And they want them at an affordable cost. So those are some of the things here that Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is really hoping to get out of this meeting with Biden today.
And Dave, for the United States, so much depends on Taiwan. How does the Taiwan issue factor in this trip?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Under Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s predecessor, Rodrigo Duterte, who left office less than a year ago, the Philippines, they basically, pushed away the West and embraced China. And Rodrigo Duterte, he didn't make a big fight about these issues in the South China Sea. He basically stood down on the South China Sea dispute and tried to strengthen ties with China, hoping that he would get more investment. There were a lot of pledges from Chinese investment, but a lot of people in the Philippines felt that China made those pledges but did not actually follow through. Now we're seeing a shift, and we're seeing the Philippines under Marcos Jr. strengthen security ties with the U.S., which obviously has China very concerned. The Philippines just a few weeks ago agreed to give the U.S. access to 4 more military sites, bringing the total to 9 military sites in the Philippines that the U.S. will have access to. Several of those point towards Taiwan. But here's the thing here. Filipinos are very concerned that if there were a war to break out over Taiwan, they see that as somebody else's fight. And they don't want to see the U.S. launch attacks into that area coming from their bases, because they're afraid that could lead to these sites in the Philippines becoming targets for China. Again, only if there were to be a war breaking out over Taiwan. So Marcos Jr. has said that he will not allow offensive actions to come from any sites in the Philippines. They can only be for defensive. He's basically saying that, hey, if China doesn't attack us, they don't have to worry about any sort of offensive action here. But again, Taiwan, very much a factor in these discussions because the Philippines is less than 200 kilometers from Taiwan.
Very interesting. A concern that many other countries in the region have as well when it comes to Taiwan. Dave Groomba, thank you so much for joining us on WION and for your excellent analysis. I hope to speak to you very soon.
Thank you.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has come under heavy criticism after he referred to the victims of a Cleveland mass shooting as illegal migrants. In the same statement, Abbott also offered his condolences as well. The Texas governor's post was to offer $50,000 for any information on the shooter, which killed 5 people, including an 8-year-old boy. This particular statement was able to get reaction from actor, former politicians, and immigration rights organizations. Several people on the internet also denounced Abbott's statement. Star Trek actor George Takei described his statement as being despicable. According to local authorities on Friday, a drunk man shot and killed 5 people after the nearby people urged him to stop firing his AR-15 style weapon in the air.
Okay, so 45. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, let's cross over and take you to the Middle East, where Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi is set to visit Syria on Wednesday. This will be the first such trip since the start of Syria's civil war in 2011. The visit comes against the backdrop of the resumption of harmonious ties between regional rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia and increased Arab engagement with Damascus. During the 2-day visit, Raisi will lead a high-level economic and political delegation to Damascus. Iran's local media has touted the meeting as being very important. It says that changes and developments taking place in West Asia region are the reason behind this visit. It is also being made at the official invitation of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Though no Iranian president has visited Syria since in the last 12 years, Assad's regime enjoys strong support from Tehran. It has given both financial and military support to Assad's regime in the conflict, which has claimed more than 500,000 lives. As per sources, Iran has also sent military advisors to help Assad during the conflict. It finances, arms, and commands a number of Syrian and foreign militia groups fighting alongside the regular armed forces. Though there are no details on what will be on the agenda during the visit, but it has come in the backdrop of rapprochement of ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia, as we mentioned earlier, and the resumption of ties had also underlined greater Arab willingness to engage with the Syrian government. Now, Assad's regime has faced international boycott, especially from Arab nations, over its civil war. But now Damascus has been focusing on repairing its damaged ties. Recently, Saudi Arabia's foreign minister had visited Syria, where he met with Assad himself. Assad, too, in February, had made a visit to Oman. With these visits, Assad's regime is finding itself back in regional recognition. Now let's shift our focus to the United States. The country has a special visa program called H-1B. Under the program, foreign nationals are given a temporary work permit to work in the United States. It's been in place for over 30 years now, but it's been found that the H-1B program is now being abused. There has been a sharp increase in fraudulent efforts. The U.S. Immigration Agency has raised serious concern about the H-1B visa lottery system. According to authorities, some companies are manipulating the system to gain an unfair advantage. There are applicants whose names have been submitted by multiple companies, and that artificially boosts the chances of a winning visa. It's like trying to win the lottery by buying 1,000 tickets instead of one. It's been found that there were 7,080,884 applications for H-1B visas in this year's computer-generated lottery, 61% more than last year. This doesn't look organic. In the past, there have been cases where employees submitted applications for workers who did not meet the requirements for the H-1B visa program. So what can be done about these problems? There have been suggestions to reform the H-1B visa program, including the lottery system. Some have suggested replacing the lottery with a system that prioritizes workers with the most in-demand skills. Others have called for stricter enforcement of the program's rules and penalize employers who violate them. One of the most notorious prisons has opened its doors again in Australia, but this time it's not for criminals, but for people looking for a luxurious stay. Moving on, the Golden State Warriors NBA title defense is very much alive. Stephen Curry ensured that the Warriors avoided a first-round exit by scoring a historic 50-point in the series decider against the Sacramento Kings. A shambolic home performance in Game 6 from the defending champions extended the series to a decider in Sacramento. All the pressure was on the Warriors, but Curry showed exactly why he is regarded as one of the greatest players of all time. Host Sacramento, in fact, had the better first half and held a 2-point lead at the interval. But the Warriors then took charge and Curry ensured there would be no tense Game 7 finish. The reigning final MVP hit 7 3-pointers for a career playoff high 50 points. The half century is also the most ever points by a player in a 7, surpassing Kevin Durant's 48 in 2021. Curry's performance meant that teammate Kevon Looney's massive 21 rebounds were reduced to a mere footnote. Curry will now lock horns with longtime rival LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers in a blockbuster Western Conference semifinals.
That's not who Looney is. You're not going to throw it up in the air to him.
It is special to know, from the first series we played him in Cleveland 14-15 season to now. We're blessed to be playing at this level still, and excited about a new chapter. Two teams trying to, keep your season alive and chase a championship, and that's what it's all about.
We're going to sign off for now. Thank you so much for joining us for WION Live Broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. But don't go away. A lot more news and headlines coming up only on WION World is One.
There are many other
It's a tradition as old as the British Empire. A ceremony that we haven't seen in the last 70 years. A day that promises to be one of the grandest in British history. Witness the coronation of King Charles III with me, Molly Gambhir, all the way from London. For the next 7 days, we will take you behind the scenes to help you understand what it takes to crown the British King. We'll also show you what to expect from the event, the spectacular arrangements, the spirited dress rehearsals, the figures to watch out for, and of course, the controversies surrounding the event. Watch the most comprehensive coverage in the run-up to the coronation ceremony all through this week with me, Molly Gambhir, only on WION World is One.
WION.
As King Charles III gets officially crowned, WION goes to London to cover the coronation. A week-long coverage from the City of Dreams. A glorious